program is the Active Center.
Today, we're jumping into one of the greatest intellectual showdowns of all time, Smith versus Marx. Now, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. This is a debate that has literally shaped, well, everything about the world we live in today.
You know, at the very heart of their disagreement is this one single massive question. It's a puzzle that every single society has had to figure out, from the very first villages to the sprawling cities we have now. Who gets what? And maybe even more importantly, who gets to decide?
And for over 200 years, there have been two completely opposite answers to that exact question. And they come from two absolute titans of economic thought.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's meet the two contenders in this epic debate.
Okay, so in one corner, you've got Adam Smith. His big idea, he called it the invisible hand. Basically, the belief that when everyone looks out for their own self-interest, the market kind of magically guides everything to create prosperity for all. So for the government's role, he was all about laissez-faire, a fancy way of saying hands off. And in the other corner, we have Karl Marx. He saw history completely differently, as one long class struggle. He argued for collective planning to handle resources, and he actually believed this would eventually make the whole idea of a state, well, totally unnecessary.
Okay, so now let's really dig in. Let's break down exactly where these two thinkers collide on the biggest economic questions out there.
So the first, and maybe the most fundamental disagreement, boils down to this: private property, the very idea of owning something. Is it a natural right that pushes people to work hard? Or is it the root of all our problems?
For Adam Smith, it was all about incentives. His famous example of the butcher and the baker just nails it. They don't make your dinner because they're nice guys. They do it because they want to make a living. And Smith believed that right there, the ability to own the rewards of your own work is what motivates people to work hard and innovate. It's what drives the whole economy forward. But Marx, he fires back with a totally different view. He says, hold on, private property isn't natural at all. For him, it's a system that allows one class, the owners, or the bourgeoisie, to exploit another class, the workers, the proletariat. So for Marx, private property has nothing to do with rewarding hard work. It's really just a legal permission slip for the rich to take what the workers have produced together.
All right, next up, where does value actually come from? I mean, when you buy a coffee or a new phone, what creates its price? What are you really paying for?
Well, Marx had a very clear answer. It's called the labor theory of value. He argued that all of an item's value comes from the labor, the time and effort it took to make it. So if a chair takes 10 hours to build, that's its value, period. And any profit the factory owner makes on top of that, Marx called it surplus value. To him, it was basically just unpaid labor, wages that were stolen right from the worker.
Smith, though, saw it very differently. He said, not so fast. He argued that value is subjective. It's not just about labor. It's also about how useful something is, its utility, and, crucially, how rare it is, its scarcity. His classic example? A diamond. Think about it. It might take very little labor to just pick one up, but it's incredibly valuable because it's super rare and people really, really want it. For Smith, what you're willing to pay is what determines value, not just how many hours someone worked on it.
And that leads us to the last big disagreement. This tension, this conflict between owners and workers. Is it just an unfortunate bug in the system, something we can patch and fix, or is it the main feature?
Oh, for Marx, it is absolutely the main feature. He believed all of human history was just one long story of class struggle. And this conflict, it wasn't a problem to be solved. No, he saw it as the very engine that would and must eventually tear down capitalism and lead to a totally classless society. Smith, on the other hand, had a much more optimistic take. He saw the system as one of mutual need. Sure, owners and workers might argue over pay, but at the end of the day, they need each other to get anything done. He saw it as a ladder of opportunity, where anyone, in theory, could climb up. For Smith, the real struggle wasn't between classes. It was the struggle of all humanity against scarcity itself.
Okay, so these are some pretty huge historical ideas, right? But what do they actually look like in the real world, today? Well, let's put these two frameworks to the test. Let's imagine a mayoral race happening right now in New York City.
Okay, first proposal on the table, free bus service and universal childcare for everyone. Adam Smith would probably be pretty worried. He'd argue this messes with market signals and creates a free rider problem, where some people benefit without paying, all on the taxpayer's dime. But Karl Marx, he'd see it completely differently. He would call these essential social wages. It's not a handout. It's just giving the working class back a piece of the enormous value they created in the first place.
All right, next up. What about the city running its own grocery stores? Smith would likely call this the folly of central planning. He'd predict that without competition and a profit motive, you'd get inefficiency, shortages, and terrible customer service. But Marx? He'd think this is a fantastic step. It starts to remove the profit motive from a basic human need, food. It's a way to allocate resources based on who's hungry, not who can make a corporation the most money.
And finally, let's tackle a classic NYC debate: freezing rents on rent-stabilized apartments. For Smith, this is an economic disaster waiting to happen. It's a direct attack on private property rights, and he'd argue it destroys any reason for landlords to maintain their buildings or for developers to build new ones, which would just make the housing shortage worse. For Marx, this is a no-brainer. He'd see it as a necessary defense for the working class. Housing, in his view, is a human right, not some commodity for landlords to speculate on and get rich.
So when you boil it all down, we're left with two profoundly different, incredibly powerful, and really long-lasting legacies that are still fighting it out in our world today. So what are the final arguments? Adam Smith would say, trust the invisible hand. Let the free market do its thing. It'll channel everyone's self-interest into prosperity that eventually lifts everyone up. And Karl Marx? His final argument is a stark warning. The market isn't a neutral force. It's a system of organized theft. True prosperity for all, he'd say, can only come from collective planning that puts human needs first, not profit.
And that leaves us with a big question, the one we're all still grappling with. Which idea should shape our future? The invisible hand or the collective will? As we face all sorts of modern challenges, from healthcare to climate change, this 200-year-old debate is, believe it or not, more relevant than ever. And the choice, well, that's still up to us.